Hello, everybody. I am happy to have with me tonight my colleague Fallon, and I'm going to read her bio in a sec. Windows closed. We've had lots of technical difficulties prior to going on to recording, just so you know. But we are here. And with me is Fallon Stapleton. Fallon is a Navy veteran turned therapist and birth worker who believes healing doesn't have to be so serious all the time. So that's right up my alley. Fallon's built a career on helping people find calm in chaos. And sometimes that means laughing at it first. Whether she's in the therapy room, the delivery room, or the school pickup line, Fallon brings equal parts depth, humor, and rebellion against burnout. She's a big believer that play is sacred, that rest is resistance, and small acts of care can change the world. Mm-hmm. So welcome, Fallon. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself now that you've had the sort of formal introduction.
Sure. Well, I'd love to share that a little bit about our story, Mike, if that's okay. When I was at Boston College in the social work program there, Mike was my clinical supervisor. He still is my clinical supervisor 10 years later, turned colleague, which is really fun for me to feel into that. And I found this game that we're going to talk about tonight, Stardew Valley, as a work of my own resistance, I think, to capitalism and to my own burnout, as a response to my own burnout. I have a private practice here in Davidson, North Carolina. I see primarily 13 and up, but I would say a huge population of folks that I work with are in the queer community and the trans community that are feeling a lot of oppression right now. And there is a lot of burnout and fear and stress in that community. So part of my work for myself and for them is to kind of find ways of bringing back joy and play in small moments as we're holding this, oppression kind of in the wings here. So that is primarily my work. I am also a labor and delivery doula, though I do that a little bit less than the work that I do as a therapist, and love to support queer families who are bringing babies into the world. And I think that that's a little bit part of what I like to do as well, is bring a little bit of playfulness and joyfulness into the birth space and into my birth education work. I just like to play.
Well, I am going to mention there that my heart kind of sang when you talked about helping queer families bring babies into the world, because as you know, I'm a part of a queer family and brought
a new daddy.
So you're on tonight to talk about a video game. And I think people may kind of just get a little whiplash just because we've been talking about some of the serious things you do, some of the work you're doing towards liberation, but now we're going to pivot and we're going to talk about, and queerness may come back in this podcast, but you're here to talk with us today primarily about how you ended up using a video game to sort of give yourself some rejuvenation. And I want to preface this by saying, I don't think you would identify yourself as a gamer, or at least prior to recently, you probably wouldn't have identified yourself as a gamer. So how did you end up getting into a video game to help?
You know, it's funny. I actually recently referred to myself as a gamer I'm not sure, I don't remember who, and I felt almost like I shouldn't or couldn't claim that for myself because I don't play games enough, or what that looks like. So I actually would call myself a gamer, even though it's not something that I do frequently. A friend of mine, so I received this, my Nintendo Switch Lite, which I have with me tonight, as a gift when I was recovering from a surgery. And I just kind of started polling friends and other gamers that I knew, what's kind of like a cozy game I can lean into while I'm resting and recovering. And a friend of mine recommended Stardew Valley. I have to say, when I first started playing this game, I didn't love it, in part because of the graphics, sometimes of like, intentionally sort of rugged graphics, I'll say, sometimes kind of hurt my eyeballs. But then I got adjusted to it. And what I found was I had an initial drive to play it in a certain way. So even my relationship to the game has kind of changed since starting to play it. But it's been really fun for me, and it's one of the few games I play on my Nintendo. Um, but it's just so cozy. So whenever I need something cozy and I want to rest and I don't want to be needed for anything, this is the game that I play.
So I have a question already, which
Yeah.
is you're describing this as a game that you weren't initially it felt a little rough getting into.
Hmm.
And you've also alluded to being in recovery from a surgery.
Hmm.
Was there something so uncomfortable about this surgery that you were willing to kind of turn to this particular game and stick with it? Or why stick with something that was like not feeling too interesting at in the beginning?
I think it was in part because because of the way that I was playing, the friend that recommended it to me also sent me the wiki page for Stardew Valley. So if you're new to the game and you're sort of trying to figure things out and it feels very confusing, the wiki page is a great place to start because it is like soup to nuts, everything you want to know about what to do and how to do it. So that was very helpful, but also really overwhelming. I thought I was playing this really simple game, and I discovered, oh my gosh, this game is actually really thoughtfully designed and it's so complex and rich. And that was a little overwhelming at first. And then I also noticed some perfectionistic parts of me that wanted to play this game in a very particular way. And that in and of itself became overwhelming. So I just felt really curious about that and curious to stay with that longer and see if there was a way to enjoy this game in a way that felt good to me. And now I love it.
So tell okay, maybe we should back up for
Hmm.
because I'm realizing a large number of the audience are going to be psychoanalysts, psychotherapists, social worker types who historically may not always play video games and may not know Stardew Valley. So what
Sure.
the heck is Stardew Valley? Explain it for us.
So from my perspective, as a fresh gamer, I would say Stardew Valley primarily is like a farming game. The game starts with you finding out that you have inherited this farm from a family member who's passed on. And you land on this farm. It looks pretty rugged, and it's your job to kind of fix it up. There's a nearby small town, folks living there, and the town is also kind of run down. And your job is to kind of like inculcate yourself into this small town culture. There's a cultural center or a community center that they encourage you to fix up, or you can go this other route, which is to contribute to this like the building of this monstrosity store that I felt really I feel really avoidant of. But and you start off the game kind of very simply farming, meaning that you're kind of like planting very basic things. You're, sowing your seeds, you're maintaining your crops, you're chopping wood. And so there's a nice slow start to the game, but you're also kind of like, what the heck am what the heck am I doing here? And then that just sort of develops over time. You get to know the different characters that are in the town. You get to do these different sort of little side quests, so and so needs a jar of jelly, bring them a jar of jelly. So it becomes very relational and a lot more than a farming game at the end of the day. But that's kind of the basic premise of it.
And what hooked you about it? What got you interested in a farming game?
I liked the idea of tending to something and caring for something without having to care if that went well. Um, and what I mean by that is, I would, plant some seeds and I would water them and I would check on them. And inevitably I would kind of like forget that I had planted some stuff and I would, come out of my house in the morning and wipe my eyes and all my stuff was dead. And I kind of was like, oh, oh well, and I would
Huh.
sort of just sow the dead crops and plant something there instead. But I just sort of started what initially was like, oh no, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to, that's right, I was supposed to water these every day and I forgot. Became like a, do I have to care that my crops are dead? It's a game. I'll just plant more. So, that initial sort of avoidance of like, oh my God, now I already tend three children and a dog in my own life, and I tend clients, and now I have to tend imaginary plants. And now I was like, I don't like this game. And then there was something really satisfying when they all died.
Oops.
Oops.
I think you've alluded to this, and you just started a little more, but it sounds like you have some perfectionism, and
Mhm.
maybe describe that a little bit from your context as a therapist and a mom, and but then talk a little more about how this game has kind of been a meditation
Yeah.
on recovery from that.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think that my perfectionism a lot of times is not, my head can wrap logic around not being perfectionistic. And yet sometimes the way that I am pulled in my behavior and the discomfort I feel when I am not perfect is at war with my brain being like, it's okay. You don't have to, no one expects you to be, you don't have to be a perfect mom. You don't have to be the perfect therapist. What does that even mean? And, I notice that how that shows up in my relationships with my children, my spouse, my clients, friends, is that it's hard for me to tolerate letting people down, people being disappointed in me. And I will feel that very deeply and really feel anxious about sort of fixing that. Which might look like anxiously checking in with a friend, are we good? Sort of shaming myself, guilting myself when I've yelled at my children. Because what kind of mother would do such a thing, right? And what's nice about playing the game is that I have started to lean into letting people down on purpose. And just kind of seeing that in the game, at least, nothing really happens. No one cares, which is really nice. In real life, people do care when you let them down, and that we learn to tolerate that and talk about it, maybe repair if we need to. But you don't have to do that in the game. You give a character a fruit that they don't like, and a little bubble pops above their head that says like, "Ugh, blech," and then you just give them something different tomorrow if you want.
When you were talking about that, it reminded me. It's so powerful about how we have this perfectionism in terms of activism. That
Mhm.
I know that you have a keen interest in social justice, and I know that you have a keen interest in a lot of different groups and helping free sentient beings from oppression,
Mm,
and we just can't do a perfect job of it.
mm,
And it seems so urgent lately that people kind of fight and resist and do things for good, and yet it seems like, at least from the radical left end or liberal perspectives, we are not doing a perfect job of that by any means. We're just
mm,
seeing so much stuff happening that it seems like we can't do anything about. And so you're sort of, I don't think you're sort of describing this as, oh, well, shit happens, but you're sort of
mm,
talking about how you were sort of describing how immobilizing
mhm,
overall
mhm.
perfectionism can be, and that doesn't help anybody either.
Right, right. Yeah, and the way that I think that that gets played out in this game is that a lot of different people need a lot of different things from you.
Oh.
And there are, little quests and projects, and, somebody's asking for 10 chicken eggs for something. And, it would be impossible playing the game to fulfill all of it. I learned the hard way by being like, yes, I'll get you that. I'll get you that. I'll get you that. And then usually there's a time limit on it. It'll say like 5 days in the game to finish, and I wouldn't finish, and I would be like, what am I, what am I doing? Now I actually kind of find it fun to sort of pick up a little side quest and then not do it on purpose.
Mm.
But yeah, I think in the real world, it's about choosing where you can have an impact in a small way. And not sort of like resting on your laurels that that is enough, because we're recognizing it's not enough. But it also makes you feel a little less powerless and helpless to do anything. We can move through that initial feeling of immobilization by just doing something small.
I'm going to pause for a minute and slow down so we have enough video space to clip this. But why don't I try to get up the game and you can
Yeah.
maybe explain it? Um, so, so Fallon, why don't I try to call up this game and on my computer, and I'm going to share the screen so folks can
Cool.
hopefully see it.
Mhm.
And I have no idea, folks, if this is going to work. This is the first time on the podcast we've done a screen share of a video game. It may not be the last, but let me see if I can. And also, truth be told, I play this game sometimes, but I play it on the Switch, not with a mouse and keystrokes. So I may be a little clumsy in playing this game, but. Let me see if I can do this. All right, so share screen. Where's Zoom? All right, and so I'm gonna.
I'm so excited for this to work. I want it to work so
I,
bad.
I hope it does. I hope it does too. I hope it does too. We will see. We will see how it goes. So, all right. So hopefully, people can see and hear this. And
I love the music, by the way. You can buy this soundtrack.
is, can you see this, by the way, Fallon?
I can.
All right. So
Are you
hopefully,
are
yeah,
you Bobbery or Fred?
I can be either one. Let's start with with Fred, whose hair may look familiar, and Fred's this is Fred's playing Dead Dodo Farm. I don't know what feelings I was in that was in when I named it that. Um, but I'm gonna just let you kind of offer me suggestions where to move and stuff,
Sure.
and you can sort of narrate and explain what on earth people are seeing.
Sure. So when you start the game, you will start from your bed in your little cabin. And a lot of times, what I'll try to do is go to the TV at the corner, and you can check on the news, and you learn little recipes there. You learn how to cook different things. So that can be kind of fun because as you gather fruits and vegetables and you forage for things, you'll learn how to cook with them.
Mm, I'm trying to figure out how to interact with the
How to
TV.
interact with the TV.
Oh, there we
There
go.
you
Oh,
go. Ooh, okay. And the fortune teller will tell you, what your luck looks like for the day, which is kind of cool because if you're going into a particular quest that's more difficult and you're having a lucky day, like this is saying luck will not be on your side today. So today would not be the day to maybe go in the mines and try and, bust a bunch of baddies.
okay. All right.
But then, you leave your cabin and you'll come outside to what is the farm that you've chosen for yourself. Woof! Mike, your farm needs work.
This was this was a new character.
So, when you start the game, it's good though, because when you start the game, your farm kind of looks like this. And you sort of walk around chopping some wood. They give you like a couple little tools. You have a pickaxe, you have an axe, you have a little hoe, and you can sort of till the land and pick up stones and trees. And you can actually very early on in the game begin to sell lumber. There's a tiny little chest to the right of your house where you can deposit things and they'll tell you, how much it's worth, and you kind of start to gather some money.
I'm gonna sell my broken CD.
Yeah, sell that broken seed. No one needs that.
And so tomorrow I'll come back, right? And that's when
Yeah. And
okay.
if you go, no, eventually there'll be kind of a more developed farm here. You can plant seeds and water them. But in the meantime, you can maybe go off to the right here and explore the village. These are your neighbors.
Oh. And it looks
So,
like it's spring.
yeah, you go through the all four seasons in this game, and there's different things to think about. So when you first start the game and you go into town, um, this is the mayor, and he tells you a little story about how it's so sad that this community center has been really run down, and he asks for your help in restoring it. And it's a really fun little project. Um, it, as you go into the community center, there's all these different quests, gathering different fruits and vegetables, doing little missions. And at the end of the day, you get to, and it'll take you a while in this game to restore the community center to its full prior splendor, if you will. But it's really fun. You get the sense that this community center was really important to the town, and it's just kind of lost its luster over the years, and you get to bring it back to life, which is cool.
I should also mention while we're going through this part of the evil Joja Corp.
Boo!
Now, Joja Corp has moved into this little community with their convenience store a la Amazon.
Yes.
And you have the choice of a villain arc where you could actually support Joja Corp in running the town business folk out of business so that
Yes.
everybody goes there. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Joja Corporation has like a convenience store in the town where basically you can buy anything that you might buy from any of the small business people in the town. If you have sort of two routes you can take with this game. You can either restore the community center as Mayor Lewis is inviting you to do, or you can begin to earn money in order to support the building of this Joja Corporation. What that means is that this community center will be plowed over and it will become a warehouse for Joja Corporation. So say goodbye to this cute little community space. It will be one giant warehouse run by Joja Corporation. So what I find is folks that are really attached to 100%ing a game, like they want to complete every single aspect of this whole game, will do the community center and they'll go back and restart the game and choose Joja Corporation instead, simply as a way to kind of do all the things that the game offers. I don't play the game that way because that doesn't feel good to me. I don't care that I'm not 100%ing it. I love the community center and it's cute. And you see these little kind of like alien characters, I don't know what they are, that have been inhabiting this space. And you kind of you bring them little offerings and they'll help you restore the community center through magic. But it's a really fun quest. No shade if you decide to choose the JoJo Corporation route. It
Right.
just doesn't feel very good for me.
So I think as this kind of cutscene sort of showed, there's also this little quasi spiritual kind of Shinto spiritual aspect of this, and that folks will probably notice when they look at this particular the community center. If you looked at it, you'll see there are little places where you could have continued to completed quests, and stars will go up, and at a certain point other things will get unlocked.
Yes.
But anyway, here we are in the village.
Yeah. So you have Pierre's little shop. This is one of the shops that's most in danger of Joja Corporation's hold on the community. So he's real mad about it. You can get into conversations with him about Joja Corporation. But these are all the little villagers. You can see them kind of wandering around. You can talk to them
Yeah, these are
as
my
you.
two boyfriends, Fallon,
Oh my
actually.
gosh.
So the one going over the river, Shane,
Uh-huh.
is one of my boyfriends, and then this is my other boyfriend.
Oh my God. What do you see in Shane?
He's got hurt. He's got
Yeah.
wounded parts.
Yes, he does. He's largely misunderstood. understood.
Well, and if you follow his cut story, he's actually got a lot of suffering that at one point in the game, spoilers, if you unlock his quest, he ends up starting to go to town for therapy every week and starts to improve his life. And then this is boyfriend two. Whose name escapes me. Alex. So Alex's boyfriend too. Neither of these two would talk to me right away, which was also probably part of the appeal. They were emotionally unavailable early in the game. But
Incredible.
tell maybe you can tell us a little bit, tell people a little bit about relationships in Stardew Valley.
Yeah. So, all you have the potential of becoming friends with any of the villagers. What that requires in the game is you can talk to them, engage them in conversation, and you can bring them gifts that you know that they'll like. Um, in order to advance your relationship with somebody, like if you actually want them to be a boyfriend or a partner, a girlfriend, then you would have to bring them gifts that like you know that they would love. Um, I don't like to try to figure these things out the hard way, because that just would take me too long and it's boring. So I just look at the wiki page. The wiki page tells me all the things that this particular character would love, and I just bring them that. The more that you bring villagers gifts that they like, the more that they like you. The more different sort of side stories will open up. You'll hear a little bit of their narrative, their backstory. Eventually, you get to a point where, if you want, you can marry one of the characters, and you can see in your menu which of the characters are single and available to be in a relationship with you. And so then you find a gift to give them. There's only a certain time of year that you can get it. It has to be raining. It's really interesting. And then you bring them that gift and, essentially propose. Once that person accepts your proposal and you're married, they will move into your cabin with you on your farm.
Cohabitation. It's
Yes. Yeah. I've heard though, if you marry Shane, I think he builds a half pipe in your backyard and spends most of his time. um, it might be Shane. It might be another one of the
my
male
oh
male
no, it's
characters.
yeah, the skater kid.
Yeah, the skater kid. Yeah. But and you can actually you can sever those ties as well. So for folks who want to kind of open up all the different narratives and learn about the different characters, um, you'll you can actually get a divorce, believe it or not, and then you can go and find somebody else. That also feels sort of odd to me. I'm like, but then what does my ex is still walking around this village? How do they feel about it? I have to see them every day at Pierre's.
Pierre's is the store.
So, but that's a kind of a fun way to get to know each of their stories.
Yeah.
And I see you fishing there.
I
You can catch
was.
fish.
I haven't done a good job of it. But so one of the things you haven't quite we haven't quite spun out yet is that when you say you can be friends and inevitably have a relationship with anyone in the game, that means anyone. That this game does not restrict you across gender lines, and
Yes.
so. Um, I wonder what your if you want to explain that a little bit and
hmm
maybe also give us the juice on your relationships in Stardew Valley.
Oh, yes. Happy to do so. I am happily married to Leah. And it's funny because other friends that play this game have joked that she is probably who would have been my real life partner
Mm.
based on my real life personality. She has a small little artsy cabin on the outskirts of town, so she's not in this main village area. She spends her days painting and sculpting. She was in a previous relationship that ended poorly and is now kind of out on her own. I found her really intriguing because she doesn't seem to care. She's a caring person, but she doesn't seem to care too much about what people think of her.
Mm.
And so she just seemed, and I had read on the wiki page as well that your life with her is really kind of cozy as well. She moves in, she brings her little art studio. Anybody that you marry that moves into you, they end up getting a little room off of your home. And I like things that are aesthetically pleasing. That's Leah's house.
Yes, I
You,
was taking you to see Leah, but I don't think she's home right now.
yeah, and I don't actually think you can go in there until you're friends with her. That being said,
Right.
she usually leaves at 10 o'clock. So if it's near 10 a.m.,
It's it's
not that I
4
haven't
p.m.
waited outside her door. Yeah, so if it's 4 p.m., because I can't see where your picture is, but she is usually in there kind of on her own, chilling. She's back doing her art. She just, because it's kind of a loner, she moves into your house and creates this cute little art space, and that is aesthetically pleasing to me. I would have preferred that than, a half pipe built in my backyard. So,
Who can blame you? It also doesn't sound like Leah is a perfectionist, so there's some
no.
complementarity there.
Yeah, even her cabin when you go in there, it looks very artsy. There's kind of art supplies haphazardly all over the place. You can tell that she dabbles in a lot of different mediums, but it's really fun to kind of imagine what it could be like to explore a different relationship than the one you're in. And for me, coming into my bisexuality later in life, having already chosen my husband, this is a really kind of fun way to choose something else.
Hmm.
And he's amazing. I love him. And it's cool that in the game I'm married to someone different and exploring that too. So it's really fun.
So tell me about that part because I think that is a pretty interesting and queer thing that you what went into your thinking about choosing a partner in Stardew Valley and did it feel transgressive at all at the beginning?
Not particularly in the beginning, in the way that I was playing the game in other aspects. It seemed like that was the thing you're supposed to do. You're supposed to meet all the villagers and make friends with all the villagers, and then you're supposed to choose a partner. And so for a while, I was kind of doing it because I thought this is how you're supposed to play, right? But then became something really interesting as I was getting to know the different characters. I was like, why would I necessarily choose a man here? I don't think I have to do that. And you don't. You can choose anybody you want. So if you read on the wiki page, it'll kind of show you what marriage to this character looks like. So
Hmm.
I was sort of choosing folks based on like, I don't know, would I want to be married to this person in real life? I don't think so. And I also have found, even just in my own friendships, that I'm friends with folks who there are similarities to my friendships in real life, and really some cool differences too. Like one of my favorite characters is a character by the name of Linus, who is like this, um, you know, recluse that like lives in the woods in a tent, and he's very curmudgeon-y. But he's also very like anti-capitalist. If you offer him certain things, he's like, "I'm good. I live off the land." And I really liked him from the beginning, so I would like always bring him little gifts. And we're friends now. But it's just really fun to kind of explore, the way that we kind of treat unhoused populations, for example, right? Would anybody really befriend Linus in real life? Maybe not. And yet he's one of my favorite characters in the game. So, and yet some of the more polished characters, I would say, in the game are really like not that nice. So, it's
Are
a
you
fun way
talking
to.
about Haley?
One of them. Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, so it's just kind of it's fun to get to know the characters and their personalities, and also kind of I think reject what you're seeing with your eyes and like sort of dig a little bit deeper on the different characters, and there may be something that you didn't see before. You're seeing something in Shane that I wasn't seeing, um,
Well,
mostly
and
because.
you're overlooking some of the things that Linus does. Linus, not only steals from everybody's garbage cans, but he also, when he rescues you at night, if your sleep timer runs out, he it is very possible he may have stolen some things from you.
Hmm.
So, none of these folks are perfect.
Right.
Um, I will mention, it's interesting that we're talking about how we use each of these characters in the game to explore transgression. I refuse to get married to either Alex or Shane because I don't want anyone moving into my house, and I don't want to have just one relationship. And so I
Yeah.
have experimented with polyamory here. I have both of them at like the highest level of loving affection up until marriage, and I keep them that way. And in fact, on occasion, I think Shane gets jealous of my relationship with Alex at like public festival moments. There are different moments in
Mm.
the game,
Hmm.
and that actually is enjoyable too. That the two
Yeah.
of them are kind of on their toes and vying for my affections.
Yeah, well, similarly, you can, once you marry someone and they do move into your home, you can choose to have children with them. And your house gets bigger and, children move in. Though interestingly, later you can decide to turn with some magic those children into livestock if you
Wait,
decide
what
you're,
now? I
yeah,
did not know this.
yeah, you can. Or like a pet. I think you can turn it into like a cat or a dog. So like maybe you can change your mind. But I have chosen not to have children in the game. I don't want kids in my house. It's just me and Leah, and I bring her a cup of coffee every morning, and she thanks me and brings me something from the garden, and that's that.
This is like this alternate universe you're living
Uh-huh.
in where you have absolutely no dependents
Nope.
responsible for you,
Nope.
right?
Love the ones I have in real life. And it's nice to not have them in the game. Mhm.
And so let's flip over to real life because your partner, your
Mhm.
husband, knows you're playing this game. What
Mhm.
kind of conversations come up about both your the playing of it, but also your relational choices in the game?
I mean, he sort of laughs because he knows that, when I first discovered this game and really actually started to like it, I was playing for like hours on end. So he would come upstairs and, get ready for bed and be like, see me behind my light, like, playing games under the covers. He's like, well, what you doing in the game? And I was like, oh, I'm trying to make Leah my wife. And he would just laugh. I think it was kind of fun for him to see me enjoying this game and, not threatened by it, which I think is just a nice dynamic to have. And also doesn't find it weird that I don't want kids in the game. He's like, the ones we have in real life are enough. So that's really fun. He's not too much of a gamer for games. Well, I would say for games like this. There are other games that we play. One of the games we like to play on Nintendo is a game called It Takes Two. So he does play some games, but this one's kind of not his jam. The farming thing, the sort of Sims like, environments, not his thing.
It's interesting. It Takes Two comes up today because yesterday I was doing a presentation for a couples therapy institute on
Mhm.
video games and gaming couples, and one of the things that came up was how It Takes Two is actually a really useful game for couples to kind of bring themselves together.
Yes. Yeah, loved it. Yeah,
Have
we finished it together and it was so fun. We laugh a lot together anyway, but that game was hysterical for us. And sort of playfully jabbing at each other and being like, you dropped me. You know, it was really fun. It's very artfully done. The story is really artful. There's a lot of connection between the two characters. You see them kind of really get to know each other again. They seem to have kind of lost their connection. So to come back together at the end is a really, really beautiful game. I was almost sad when the story ended. So now our goal is to play as the opposite character.
and I think there's a sequel or one is coming out.
I've heard, yes. I want to play that one too.
So back to Stardew Valley. Did you talk to your partner at all about what you liked about Leah, and has it had any impact on how he connects with you?
Um, Not well, I don't know that we have talked about it, but I think if anything, there's this understanding that there are aspects of her as a character and a partner that are in some ways really similar, and in other ways really different. And the similarities are kind of funny to me because they're non-gendered. They're really more about caring. If you go up to her every morning, she will have, she gives you a kiss in the morning and says good morning. And my spouse is like that. He's very caring. He's very affectionate. And so it does feel kind of nice to have aspects of what is in the game also reflected in my real life. Like it doesn't, there's not this sense of loss, like, oh, I wish I'm grieving
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have this in real life, but I have it in the game.
Mm-hmm.
The things that I have in the game that I don't have in real life are just sort of like fun, almost like if you woke up tomorrow and your life was completely different, and you woke up in a different universe and timeline, you could be equally content in both, which
Mm-hmm.
is kind of fun to talk about and think about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that has just given us some playful conversation more than anything like too deep or serious.
I'm glad you could have talked with us about it because I think you're underscoring something. If I can talk about video games and psychology for a minute,
Yeah.
they're not a replacement for relationships in the world with human beings. That a lot of
Hmm.
times I think people have this anxiety that somehow people are playing these games to have relationships that are what they want in entirety. And in fact, usually they're ways of accentuating relationships that they have in life outside of a video game, and not to replace them. So it's not
Hmm.
like you're sort of, you kind of fled into the video game to flee an unhealthy relationship. You're actually are telling us something quite the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I think in addition to that, because you can rest and rejuvenate in a game, I actually think it makes you more available in
Hmm.
your relationships outside of it. If I'm coming into not even just my spousal relationship, but my clients, my friends, my children, and I am burnt out to the tilt. I'm really this like kind of exhausted, burned up piece of flesh that has like nothing left to give to these relationships. It's not good for me. It's not good for anyone. Being able to kind of explore this fantasy in the game
Hmm.
allows me to recharge in a way that I'm actually more present in
Hmm.
those relationships because I feel rejuvenated. I've had some fun. I've been playing.
Hmm.
So yeah, games are a lovely supplement, I think, to our relationships. The other fun thing that you can do if folks are interested in playing this game is that you can co-op. You can
Hmm.
actually play with other people. And that is really funny. A friend of mine who plays in a co-op farm will wake up sometimes and there are objects placed completely around her bed so that she can't get out of it.
Hmm.
And she'll know it's a certain friend of hers who's come to her farm in the middle of the night to put all these objects there. So it's fun to think about, even just playing the game with other people in relationship.
I have, so during COVID, I played a game called Valheim, which is this sort of Viking warrior survival crafty game. And I have a server, and so I had a few friends that um, played the game too, and one of them was the teenage son of a college friend of mine who happens to be a psychologist, and this young man kind of he was in lockdown, and he was so we kind of latched on to this game, and we would play a lot, and in the game, if you kill these giant monstrous trolls, you can loot their heads and use them as trophies. And so I killed a whole bunch of trolls. And one night, I went in when he wasn't on the game. I logged in to and went into his little cabin, and I surrounded his bedroom walls with all of these giant troll heads, so that when he spawned in the morning, he would look up and there were all of these giant troll heads staring at him. He was delightfully traumatized, not really, but it is sort of a way. It's almost like, when a cat puts a dead bird on
Yeah.
there's this playfulness. So that is a joy of co-op, and
Hmm.
I wish more people experienced it.
Yeah. I've actually often thought about what would a therapy group co-op look like on Stardew Valley, if you could sort of invite folks to play and engage with you in a sort of therapeutic online setting, what that would look like. We'll pin that one for supervision, maybe.
Yeah. Or we could, yeah, maybe pilot that at some point.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the questions that I sometimes ask people when we're doing this podcast is how does doing this form of play help you resist the pull towards numbness or compliance? Because we are under so much pressure right now. It's being brought to bear on us to just sort of numb out, line
Mm.
up, do whatever. And how has playing helped you in the past year and a half when you've really seen the sort of rise of
Mm.
authoritarianism?
I feel like it's sort of the rise of authoritarianism in conjunction with what has already been here, which
Yeah.
is individualism and capitalism, both of which are incredibly oppressive, and all of those things sort of pressure the individual to just grind and grind and grind every day for, what little we have to earn, and sort of thrives on us becoming numb, and proceeding as though we are, just sort of lemmings or robots or something. So there's something really kind of raw and vulnerable about remembering that even when oppression and capitalism and authoritarianism are happening outside, that we can still access play in here, and in fact, we must. Like it feels to me like an imperative, to slow down, to play. These systems don't want us to feel joy. They want us to forget that we can access joy. And I believe that we can. It's kind of, I've likened it to, if you listen to some old hymns from, enslaved plantations of people singing, in opposition, people that continued during the Holocaust to engage in their art. People have been kind of resisting through play and art and music, against authoritarianism and oppression, forever.
And using creativity.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm struck by, and I'm glad we sort of shared some of the examples of this game so people saw it, because hopefully some people are going, but Fallon, how are you taking refuge from capitalism and individualism by going into a game where you need to farm more, to make more gold, to buy more things? How is this an escape or different?
So there is an aspect of the game that you can be doing those things, but I
Hmm.
think what's nice is like actually you don't have to
Yeah.
on any given day. I have days in the games where I just sort of wander around and forage
Hmm.
things that I'm just gonna eat.
Hmm.
And I pet my cat and ride my little horse around. You can get a horse, by the way. So if you're done walking really, really slowly, you can save up for a horse. But there are days where I am trying to earn money because
Hmm.
I'm trying to sort of add to my own pleasure, like buying the horse, for
Hmm.
example, or buying artwork or things for your home or your yard. You can kind of beautify,
Hmm.
and there's even some really fun online groups. One of them's on Facebook. It's called Stardew Valley Inspo, and you can get inspiration for how to decorate your farm. So, if I could be, farming because I think that my job is to make money. But you don't really have to. Nothing happens in the game if you don't till your crops one day.
Hmm.
You can just kind of wander around and, I might go check out the mines and see what there is to see there, or
Hmm.
go to the desert and just kind of wander around. There's days I wonder, and that is, you know, it would take me a century to 100% the game in that way, but who cares?
Yeah, no, one of the things I've given this some thought because, kind of thinking about video games and their connection or disconnection to life is something I'm really interested in. But one of the things I think this game does is it loosens this connection between capitalism and human beings' a need for a sense of mastery and the self-esteem
Yeah.
that comes from a sense of mastery.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons capitalism works so well is I think it ties in with something that may be kind of innate with us, that we want to feel
Mm.
competent. We want to feel like
Yeah.
we're moving through the world in a way that makes sense and gives us some meaning. And if if in the game you decide you want to do the quest where you kill 100 bats and have 100 bat wings, if that makes you feel good, you can do it.
Hmm.
But you can also choose not to. And you can
Hmm.
also recognize, yes, there's a daily timer and a monthly timer, but I don't have to get this done within that time. Like you sort of said, there's these quests where you've got 10 days to do it, and halfway through you can be like, hey, I don't feel like I need to do this, and I'm
Hmm.
okay with that.
Hmm.
Right. Whereas
Yeah.
in our lives where we have locked into having families and having utility bills and having mortgages, it
Hmm.
doesn't seem as immediately easy to say, hey, this is a choice,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, it is really cool to master something in the game and just enjoy it for the sake of mastery, and not realizing that this is because you had to break your back to like pay for this little cabin that you
Mm-hmm.
have. You get the cabin forever,
Mm-hmm.
regardless. The other thing too is that goes along with, I think, the idea of like not necessarily showing up for, in real life, like we need communal care. We need each other in order to function. And that can feel heavy
Mm-hmm.
at times. And in the game, you don't necessarily, you can kind of engage in community and help, one character get those 100 bat wings, or you could not. And he's still going to be your friend, in the game, he may not marry you, but that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think there's also an idea of like you get to kind of lay down the burden, whatever it is that you do in your real life where you are showing up for people and taking care of people and engaging in community, that you can actually lay that down a little bit in the game. There's days where I don't even talk to anyone in the game. I just pet my cat and my animals and
Mm-hmm.
go back to bed.
Well, and talk about petting animals because there is some tongue-in-cheek pressure on the animals to be pet.
Yes, yeah, they'll get kind of grumpy with you if you don't pet them like every single day. And that being said, the more that you pet them, interestingly enough, right, we're talking about capitalism, the more you pet them, the happier they are, the more precious goods you'll get from them. So, an egg from your hen that is, just kind of mildly pleased to be where they are, is going to give you a regular egg you can get a little bit of money from. But if you pet them every day and, now you're their favorite farmer, you're going to get eggs that are very precious. So, I do find that I feel more sad when my animals are grumpy with me than when the villagers are grumpy with me. And so again, early in the game, I felt this pressure to like make sure that I pet them every single day. And
Mm.
because you get more and more animals, I was like spending half my morning petting all these animals. And I was like, wait, maybe they could just be upset with me. Like maybe that doesn't really matter.
Mm.
What care? Why do I care what kind of eggs they leave me? Sometimes I don't even remember to pick up the eggs.
Mm.
So, you can really kind of play around with how you engage the game in a fun way, that I think you can take some skills into the outside world, a little bit from it.
Well, you're talking about resistance there, right? Like in this case, the
Yeah.
chickens are the fascists that like you're resisting. So what if they're mad at me? So what?
Hmm. Yeah.
Have you talked with any of your patients about your playing Stardew Valley, and has it made any difference in your work?
Yeah, it's been really fun to talk about. I have a few clients who play the game regularly. One of whom is really, really attached to making sure that the game is like 100%.
Hmm.
Though interestingly, will return to the game, time and again as kind of like a almost a mindfulness practice, right? Because the game has become familiar, it has become routine. They know exactly what to do, where to go, who to talk to, right? It's not learning something new, right? It's already been mastered. But what's really cool, I think, about talking with about the game with folks is that they realize that there is some relatability in you, especially some of our young people who game, somewhat seriously. I think are kind of scared to talk about games. They will often tell me that people find them to be unserious and don't take their hobbies seriously, get a real hobby. And so finding out your therapist plays this game that you do, I think is really so relational and lovely. You get to say, "Yeah, that game's really fun. That's a great hobby. I love that you play that." And it's interesting to explore how they play it and what they get out of it. And just kind of sitting with how different that can be from the way that I play it. And that being something we can talk about is really cool.
And have you explored really big differences between the way they play and the way you play?
Yes. I think that there's much more for other folks, a strong desire to kind of get every achievement there is to offer, and I'm not compelled to do that. I don't imagine that I ever will. Like you have to make every single recipe with every single fruit and vegetable. Like I can't even imagine. Wonderful for them that that feels like important and there's a sense of mastery over that. But is completely unlike the way that I play it. I don't feel like I have to achieve or accomplish anything.
Do your children play Stardew Valley?
My daughter does. My oldest, who's 8, likes to play. She kind of gets frustrated at the game because she can't really read the wiki
Mm.
page. And so I have a lot of compassion for her because if I was walking around without the wiki page, kind of like the cheat sheet, if you will,
Hmm.
I don't think I would really know what to do. So sometimes I'll go into her farm and she's like, I just don't have any money. I'm like, well, you're buying a bunch of stuff you don't need. And she was like, I thought you told me I have to chop wood. I was like, you do, but you have to sell it. So it's really it's really fun I actually thought maybe it would be more fun for us to co-op it.
Mm.
Just to kind of play together. It almost our dynamic almost seems more sisterly in those moments than I'm parenting her, but more of this kind of like peer-to-peer experience in the game, which is sort of fun, I think, for us.
You need to teach her about the ancient fruit and getting greenhouse set up as soon as possible.
Yes, yes. I showed her my greenhouse. She's like, "Where did you get
Get
that?"
that.
It's like hard work.
What are things that we haven't hit on yet in terms of Stardew Valley that you kind of think are useful for people that are watching a podcast on play and subversion?
Um, I'm trying to think of things that we maybe haven't touched on quite yet. I think what is when you're reading the description of this game and you see, farming game, right?
Hmm.
I don't know how many people that would appeal to other than folks that kind of like these sort of Sims type games. But, I would encourage folks to consider that the game really has this rich storytelling underpinning it. It's almost kind of like if you were to sit on your couch and watch a really cozy Netflix series. There's really something to kind of lean into with the storytelling of this game that I think really speaks to its artistry. And I don't know that you sort of get that when you start the game and you see these kind of fragmented graphics and it looks like you're like, what is this, like Nintendo from 1984? I don't know.
Hmm.
And it looks very simplistic, but it's actually really rich. And why do I feel like that's important? It gives you a way of sort of leaning into fantasy. You know, there's a whole world. It feels like a whole different universe than the one that you're in. And that is a really fun way to escape. You know, we need to daydream, we need to fantasize. I think that that is, you know, an important part of resistance as well.
You know, it's interesting also that one of the storylines in that game is really all about institutional resistance,
Hmm.
and resisting capitalism and the work grind. And with some irony, this guy starts out as in an office job that's kind of soulless and gray, and then suddenly he inherits a farm and he goes off into the country where he's grinding in a different way, but it starts to become imbued with some meaning. Like he's
Hmm.
actually trying to restore something,
Hmm.
which I
Hmm.
find really interesting. And also the that everyone you meet in this story, sort of like everyone you meet in life, has a backstory. Whether you
Hmm.
choose to explore it or
Right.
unlock it, there it is there.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and I to that end, I think like, you know, folks who really are intent on kind of achieving every single thing in this game are going to get to know each and every single one of these characters. And that, in my experience of playing the game, feels a bit burdensome. You know, I like the freedom to kind of know the people that I do know in the game, and maybe at some point that will change and I'll want to get to know more of these characters. But you know, I care for a lot of people in my real life. So sometimes walking past a villager and not having a conversation can be just as helpful as if on it's today in particular, I see you and I might, you know, give you a turnip that you hate by accident. You know, you don't need to do that. So, you know, when people say like, "Oh, who's your favorite character?" I'm like, other than my wife, I don't really know, because I don't really know a lot of the characters in the game as deeply as you could, if you were playing in a different way.
So some of what you're talking about sounds very appealing to um, therapists that have a hard time turning off being a therapist. Like you're talking
Uh-huh.
about relieving yourself of the obligation to take an interest in everyone. And
Right.
there's so much messaging in. I'm going to sound like a cranky Gen Xer here, but there's so much messaging with Buddhism, Westernized Buddhism, and sort of the sort of spiritualism that kind of tells us you need to cultivate a loving kindness and curiosity to everyone, as if suddenly I'm now obligated to stop and talk to every single person and ask how
Hmm.
their day was, as if that
Hmm.
could ever be anything other than performative to some extent.
Right. Well, and I think to your point about cozying up to Shane, right? Like he's only ever been kind of rude and mean to me, and I, I can value as a therapist that he's wounded and there's a backstory, and you know maybe I could get to know it. I'm like, I don't care. You're kind of rude. You know, I don't have time for that. Be nice to me or not. So, you know, I do, it's nice to actually kind of leave that aspect of my identity outside of the game. I don't really
Yeah,
care about Shane's wounded backstory.
yeah.
You know, I have a lot of wounded backstories I sort of carry and hold all day, every day. And I love that work in real life. I don't need to do it, you know, in a game. You know, he's kind of grumbly and says, "What do you want?" And then I go, "Nothing." And keep
From
going.
you.
Yeah. I have occasionally bought him a beer, just like when I'm feeling a little generous. You know, I'll slide him an ale. But you know, other than that, I'm not, you know, super interested in getting to the bottom of
Yeah.
his stuff.
Well, you're also enabling an alcoholic because Shane's got a problem with drinking. By the way, giving him a pizza, although it's a little more expensive, will make him care for you more.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
I'll share my own neurosis here because one of the things that I find very fascinating about this game is that I can find myself erotically attracted to these pixelated characters.
Hmm. Hmm.
And pixelated characters do not resemble real life human beings, right? And yet, I find it interesting that I find Shane and Alex attractive
Hmm.
on a erotic level, not just a wounded healer level, but it sort of it in because it's in a game, it helps me take a look at a real life neurosis, which is, is it that I find people attractive because they're wounded, is it so I don't know, so viscerally embedded that there's something about like toxic masculinity that's hot, whether I like it or not, right? Like, why would I be attracted to this person? Is it because they are like they have this weird backstory where they've been bruised, or is that part of like what then filters through my eyeball so that suddenly I see them that way?
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
you're making me wonder if I'm in some ways punishing Shane by giving him beer from time to time is
Ooh,
punishing the toxic masculinity a little bit.
yeah.
Interesting. Gonna have to unpack that one a little bit more. Yeah, it's interesting to see a couple of the groups that I'm in that where folks are kind of talking about playing this game. There is a lot of that. There is
Hmm.
like real like erotic. I don't experience it maybe in that same way, but I do actually notice an aversion
Hmm.
to characters in the game. For example, Harvey annoys me. He is like a nerdy, like biology type guy who's,
Oh.
you talk to him and he's like, "Remember to wash your hands," and I'm like, "Okay," and so like I actually enjoy avoiding people that I have an aversion to in the game. Shane's one of
Uh-huh.
them.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm kind of wondering if the times that I'm slipping him a beer, I'm subconsciously kind of trying to punish him
Mm.
for being so toxic. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of explore your own ideas and relationships in real life and kind of like act them out a little bit in the game. Yeah.
We should talk about Penny for a minute. Penny is this weird chick in the game who, unlike like if the majority of people like an object as a gift, Penny's gonna hate it, and if everybody else hates it, Penny's gonna like it. So like she loves dwarven artifacts. Like so the only other character in the game that likes the things that Penny likes is the centuries old little dwarf that lives in a cave that you unlock at a certain point. And I do want to kind of try, I don't want to, I'm not a completionist, but I do try to level everybody up. And
Yeah.
so like occasionally I'm like, oh, I've got too many of these dwarven artifacts in my in inventory. Oh, I know. I'll unload them on Penny because Penny likes this crazy stuff. And as things are getting further on, Penny's storyline is getting unlocked, and I'm learning more about her. And I'm not sure I necessarily. And then there's this one other character who, by the way, for folks that play this game or don't play this game, trigger warning, there's a lot of alcoholism and alcoholic family systems in this video game.
Hmm. Hmm.
People have parents who are alcoholic that have died, or they live with their aunts who in a trailer who is drinking too much. There's a lot of that stuff. But I do think it is very interesting when I notice that I'm like really kind of averse to somebody to kind of
Hmm.
lean into it a little bit.
Hmm.
But again, I don't want to turn this into therapy. It's totally fine if you never want to give Penny a dwarven artifact. It's totally fine if you don't want to talk with any of these people.
Well, what's kind of cool about what you're saying is I feel curious about doing that, but without a sense of obligation to do it, which is fun. When people tell me, oh, if you do X, Y will happen, then I feel curious about doing that, but not, for the purpose of like, oh, this is a must, or to get to this next level, thou shalt. I just go, huh, that sounds kind of a cool thing I haven't done before. And that doing that can be helpful when the game starts to feel boring or bland, and then I don't want to play because I have just been kind of wandering around doing nothing. I might give Petty a dwarf an artifact and see what happens.
if,
Um,
if you got a bunch.
yeah. So then it becomes more about kind of creating something new and playing in a different way. Then it becomes like, oh, well, I need to make sure that I get Penny to this certain level and then unlock this and then unlock that. That I have
Yeah,
no attachment to.
yeah. I know we're coming up towards the end of the time we've got for the interview, but I wanted to ask you something I ask everybody
Hmm.
that's been on the podcast so far, which is what advice would you give listeners who want to cultivate playful subversion in their own lives, but feel stuck about figuring out what it is or guilty about making the time for doing that?
Hmm. I would say ask people, what are you doing? In this fresh hell dumpster fire that we're living in. Because I don't know that I would have found this game had someone not offered it to me. And knows me and knows what I might like, who said, why don't you try this game? So ask. Maybe there is something. I think my social media content as well has been kind of carefully curated. I see a lot of like creative content,
Mm-hmm.
and that will give me some ideas too. So it depends on your relationship with social media right now. If your algorithm is a bunch of real hot garbage, don't look there.
Mm-hmm.
But look relationally.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would advise people to try something that maybe they wouldn't have considered. If you're like, I don't know, I'm not like, I wouldn't say I'm a gamer. Like, I'm certainly not going to go buy a Nintendo Switch. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should, you know? I got mine as a gift, so I think they're kind of pricey, but, you know, try something out. Try because I think that there's something really fun and playful about exploring something new in the way that a child does, right? You give them a gift for the first time and they're like turning this object
Mm-hmm.
around and they're so fascinated by it. And we kind of forget to do that. I think we kind of lean on our old hobbies, and that's fine. It's
Mm-hmm.
great. It's great to be, a cozy hobbyist and go to the things that feel comfy and safe. But there's also something really fun about trying something new and fascinating. One person that I would recommend following on social media, if you are a gamer and you like the idea of cozy games, is cozy.games. She explores a lot of different, she loves Stardew Valley. She's an avid player. And there's a lot of other really cool games that she likes as well. So lately I've been recommending, a couple different influencers in that way. And she does a lot of different types of cozy hobbies, some of whom I've like picked up myself. So, ask around. What are people doing? How are people getting cozy around here?
You reminded me, I didn't tell people this earlier in the podcast, but um, I actually started playing Stardew Valley as a result of you, Fallon. That when you talked about this at one point, I had seen Stardew Valley around. It was in my Steam kind of recommended playlist, but I was like, I never tried it. And then you were like, you were telling me about your real interest in it. You were spending a lot of time with it, and I was like, huh, if she's finding that interesting, that may make it that interested me. So I actually started playing, and I've actually played through to completion the community center. I've restored it once, and
Yeah.
it's because of doing what you sort of said, although you took it a step further, which is think about the people in your life that you find kind of living life in a way that's not insane, and say to them, hey, I'm looking for new ways to play and enjoy myself. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons I tried to start this podcast, is that I think a lot of us may feel ashamed or reluctant to say, hey, I want to learn how to play better. I want to learn new,
Mm-hmm.
what am I missing? What don't I know?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's a really good advice, that, asking people,
Mm-hmm.
which is this is we're going to segue here into the nonprofit you're giving us. But one of the things adolescents do without even knowing it, that we lose as we get older, is they have this peer cohort that they all kind of constantly draw on for, oh, well, this is good music, this is a fun game, this is a good thing to do. And sometimes adults roll our eyes about, oh boy, how peer group is so kind of formative for them. But in fact, what happens as we get older is we silo down into our own families, and
Hmm.
we don't have this crazy roommate that's playing this weird playlist that suddenly
Hmm.
we learn this new music or they're doing some
Hmm.
other fun thing. So we as grown-ups need to do a better job of kind of soliciting from other people, like
Hmm.
what's fun? What could I what
Yeah.
how can I have fun?
Or infantilizing fun as something that's for kids and not grown-ups. Something
Yes.
your college roommate did, but you don't get to do anymore because you're in your 9 to 5 now. And who does that?
Right.
Hmm.
Right. So
So
go.
it's kind of a reminder to sort of get out of your echo chamber and realize actually there's probably a lot of ways people are playing that
Yeah.
we're not really talking about even. And
Right.
ask around.
Right. Yeah, I have to tell you, I have so many folks I do consulting with around um, young adults that are slackers, and some of what I notice is some heavy pathology, and
Hmm.
what they're pathologizing in some ways is, hey, I got onto this treadmill. I'm grinding and not enjoying myself, but that's what you do. That's what being an adult is.
Mm.
And in fact, there's some envy at these younger folks who are like, hey, or what? Or
Yeah.
what?
Or what?
What if I decide I don't want to do that? Okay.
Hmm.
What if I don't? What if I want to play video games or I want to listen to music or do
Hmm.
whatever? And I think it rankles those of us who sort of were socialized like, no, you've got to say goodbye to joy. Once you graduate college, nope, that was your time for experimenting, solidify your identity and get to
Hmm.
work.
Hmm.
But the youth don't do that. And speaking of the youth, I'm going to share the screen,
Yeah.
and I want you to maybe tell us a little bit. Fallon is doing for fun and for free this podcast, and so what we ask all podcast folks to do is to come on and say, hey, if you enjoyed this, maybe you want to consider donating to this particular thing. And you've picked a group called Umbrella Inc. And what
Hmm.
is that?
Yeah, Umbrella Inc. is a relatively new organization in our area that we call the Lake Norman area of North Carolina. It is created to be a safe place for fun and creativity for queer young people, 13 to 18. They don't have much of an online presence. That's by design. They keep their physical location private for the safety of the kids that go there. And so, forgive the PayPal link here. It is a real place. It is a real place. But doing things a little bit unconventionally for the protection of their population, which I think is so important
Mm-hmm.
right now. But they're doing some really cool things and very much needed in our area in the South, where queer young people really, really need a safe place to be and to be in community with each other and be joyful and creative together at the same time.
Hey, Fallon, can you give an example or two of what they are doing creatively? Like, what are some things that they're doing or saving up to do?
Yeah, I've seen they have some auction events going on, art gallery events, so they do some creative art with the young people there. They also have volunteers that help with meals for the youth there. They offer some free counseling, so some of the folks that volunteer there and work there offer counseling for free. So a lot of the donations are to like offset, the costs of those kind of events and, creative materials, things like that. So, they're doing some really cool work in the community. And, are only gonna grow. They're pretty small right now, but they're gonna grow a lot, I'm sure.
And what is that community like there? Talk a little bit about the LGBTQIA community in that part of North Carolina.
So it's interesting. People are really quite literally all over the spectrum with how out loud they live their lives in this area. There are some people that I meet and that I work with that are very unapologetically queer, unapologetically trans, non-binary, and then other folks who are really kind of trying to live their lives in as much as almost secrecy as possible, and that feels really sad to me. There's a real grief at not being able to or not feeling as though the outside world is a safe place. You know, we have kind of these very queer friendly pockets, I would say, in this area. You know, I wouldn't say that this area is completely, queer phobic writ large, but it can be really challenging to find these pockets of acceptance and affirmation. Umbrella Inc. is one of them. We have another organization in Charlotte called Time Out Youth. And these organizations are really wonderful, safe spaces. Time Out Youth as well has a couple Discord servers. So for folks that are really not feeling safe to kind of be out in the community, can find some safety in those online spaces too.
Mm.
So it's a really interesting landscape, I would say. People all over the spectrum with kind of how out they are and how in the community they feel like they can be.
Well, I hope folks will feel like they can click on that link or donate to it. We're going to have it at the end of the podcast too, a link people can do.
Awesome.
And at this point, we have taken a good chunk of your evening time. I really appreciate it, Fallon. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm so
Um,
glad to be here. Thank you for having me.